Hello, and welcome to Let My People Eat, a podcast that provides satisfying talk about kosher nutrition. Here we clear through the clutter of nutrition speak, arm you with the clarity and confidence to eat, feel, and be your healthiest every day. I am Jill Scharfman, a board-certified holistic nutritionist living in Los Angeles.
And I'm Dr. Andrea Moskowitz, a neuroscientist and psychiatrist in Los Angeles. I use my training and experience to integrate positive lifestyle changes into my patients' lives.
Hey, Andrea.
Hey, Jill. How's it going?
Well, things are a little crazy here in LA right now.
You think?
Yes. We're all on lockdown. Right. Everything's closed. I mean, everything.
A lot of things, yeah.
Yeah, except the supermarkets and the drugstores. But even then, going into the supermarkets, there's like nothing there. I mean, even like things like lettuce, which is a highly perishable,
right,
is gone. There are no potatoes, onions, garlic. It's a little scary out there right now, especially for those of us who are planning to make Pesach.
Right.
And then I know there are a lot of women out there whose travel plans were canceled.
Right.
They've never made a Seder.
Right.
They are not set up to make a Seder.
No.
And a lot of people have asked their housekeepers to stay home.
Right.
And their kids are home.
And their kids are home. Right. And also, too, part of the reason they've never made a Seder, they've been avoiding it because they're so scared of it.
Because they're so scared.
So the idea of cooking for all that time is overwhelming.
So we're here to give you some tips, but also, our interest is we want to make sure it's a healthy Passover.
Right.
And that you're not going and buying all the junk food because you're panicking about what you're going to do. So here, we got another email. Hi, Jill and Andrea. I'm pretty good at serving my family healthy food throughout the year, but I'm worried about Passover. So much of what is kosher for Pesach is processed packaged foods. How do I maintain a healthy diet during the holiday? Thanks for helping all of us be healthier, Shoshana. So we are very fortunate because we've given tips. We've had other episodes on Passover and how to organize and be prepared, which you can always go back and look at it in the archives. But we also have a guest today who has an ebook that he is going to, we'll talk about it, but it's going to be a Passover healthy tips for Passover ebook. And we're going to tell you how you can get hold of that. But Michael Tannenbaum is the founder of Consciously Kosher, an online resource dedicated to educating both the Jewish community and the general public on the overall health benefits of eating a kosher diet rich in nutritious, predominantly unprocessed whole foods. Michael has worked in tech and social media for over a decade, where he dealt with extreme work-life balance issues that had negatively impacted his health. Consciously Kosher grew out of his research to heal the body and mind with food. Finding success with his own health issues, he decided to share his discoveries with others. He holds a BA from the University of Chicago, an MBA from Pepperdine University, and a culinary nutrition certification from the Academy of Culinary Nutrition. Hey, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Good morning. How are you doing?
We're good. Thank you for joining us in studio today amidst all the panic going on outside. Okay, Andrea knows, I know, Pesach does not have to be filled with cheap, high sugar, heavy carbs, stomach ache inducing meals, right? We can have our fresh fruits, our veggies, things that you don't need a hechsher for, right?
Correct.
So we have to get creative. We have to know where to shop. Help us, please.
I would love to.
Yes.
Thank you for having me today. I'm super excited.
Pleasure.
And this is a topic that I've been thinking about for a very long time. And part of it is that my wife and kids and I have had many years of practice at this point, figuring this out on our own, starting off about 5-6 years ago, wondering why we're not feeling well during the holiday oftentimes. I have sulfite allergies. I have a lot of sensitivities to foods. I'm not sure if I have a gluten allergy in particular or sensitivity, but I definitely get really tired when I have foods that are high in, like foods like wheat and rye that are high in gluten. So not sure medically what's going on, but I do know that when I refrain from those foods, I feel a lot better. And also, there's a lot of additives in the food on Pesach, particularly on Pesach. Mm-hmm. And what's ironic about that is that there's a lot of additives you're not supposed to have on Pesach. So they just substitute those with others. So I want to back up for 1 second. A couple things that we found in the last few years of doing this is that there's 4 basic types of foods that show up on Pesach almost exclusively that you rarely see during the rest of the year. And those are foods that are high in MSG, You have your cottonseed oil foods, lots of white refined sugar, because a lot of other things aren't in there. And also you have your potato starch,
Right.
which basically is highly refined, and it
Right.
becomes pure sugar once you eat it. And in lieu of that, there's a lot of other opportunities to eat healthy foods. One of the things that I found is that a lot of the foods that you buy in the store, you can make fresh.
Right.
And for example, Pesach really should be about 120 years ago, a lot of it was about fresh fruits and vegetables.
Right.
And then Manischewitz came along, and a lot of the food processing companies came along, and they decided to make everything processed. So now people think that Pesach is about buying cake mixes and making everything out of matzah meal and potato starch, and buying, for example, those cakes you get at the kosher bakeries.
Right.
Which
Right.
those 7-layer cakes, and those things are so high in refined sugar. They're so high in bad oils.
Right.
It's unbelievable. The
Right.
soup mixes that we eat.
Right. By the way, I just want to say, like, if you're not a baker and you need to go to the baker, if you're having that at the end of a Yontif meal,
Right.
if you buy a 7-layer cake or two, that's okay.
Right.
But it's like,
Yes.
we just don't want to burden our toxic load and have too many of these things.
That's
so,
correct.
yeah, go ahead.
The other thing I think also is that I see sometimes people when they're approaching Pesach, it's first of all, it's like, oh my gosh, we want to have pizza, we want to have this, we want to have that. It's like, it's 8 days. Like
Yes.
you'll live. And I've always tried to see it like with my family, as you have with yours, that for each Chag, that it has its own specific foods and things that we do. So that like Pesach is not about trying to recreate all your chumetz
Correct.
in a Pesach
Yes.
form. It's like we have certain foods, and sometimes I would make them more for Pesach or whatever, that were healthy, but and then people start to look forward to that.
Right.
So like, don't feel like, stop trying to recreate chumetz during the Chag.
Yep.
That's
good
such
point.
a great point. That's
Yeah.
really a great point.
You
Because
know?
I find a lot of people look for those products that are like the imitation vanilla, for example,
Right.
that you would never have, most likely not have during the regular year, but because you want to have that in your diet, you throw it in there
Right.
in some Pesach form. Also with potato starch, you want to have a
Right.
cake, so you have potato starch cakes, which spike your blood sugar to the moon.
Right.
I'm certain.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny because what we eat on Pesach, especially because we're mostly gluten free,
Yeah.
is not really that different. We're still
Oh,
eating
right.
all our
Agreed.
Right.
soups and our
Right.
fish and
Right. Yeah.
meats, chicken, things like that. So it's actually very interesting for us that it's not that different. Like you were saying, trying to create those.
Don't
foods,
try it.
but that's not
Right.
Don't
even.
try.
Well, that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, and it's more fun that way, and you can like do different things because also this is a time of year sometimes like when asparagus is first coming out,
Yes,
and
seasonality.
and there's other like fruits and vegetables that are first coming out at this time of year, depending exactly when Pesach is, that you can start incorporating and using.
No, I love that. And part of that is that what we learn how to do is to figure out which markets to go to.
Right.
Typically, people flood the kosher markets. And in Kol HaKavod, it's wonderful that people use the kosher markets. That's what they're there for. However, what I've found is that you can do, at least we've learned, you can do a lot of your Pesach shopping by hardly ever going into a kosher market, facing the crowds, and having to wait in those lines to get those processed foods.
I just also want to add something else because there are so many more people staying home this year
Right.
and not traveling. People are worried that the kosher markets are going to run out of the products that they need. So this is a really important point.
Right.
That you really don't need a lot of the products that are in the
The
kosher markets right
right?
now.
Exactly.
Which goes into my next point so
Right.
beautifully, which is there are so many fresh foods. Like, for example, so far some of the farmers markets are open still.
Yes.
Right.
And I also read that you can order from Underwood Farms
Oh, okay.
and they'll deliver.
to know.
LA. That's good
So
to know.
if you want
Thank
to, if you want to go there or you don't want to go there and have it delivered to you in Los Angeles, at least, there are still options like that to get fresh fruits and vegetables, which you can avoid even the major supermarkets. Then there are a lot of foods that don't need Pesach certification,
Right.
raw materials.
Right.
Like our family loves to make chocolate, but we use raw cacao powder,
Right.
which does not need a Pesach certification as long as
Right.
it has an OU.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of materials. I think even hemp seeds and flax seeds, in most cases, you have to check the. I'm pretty certain I checked on some of the sites that as long as it has a certification and you sift through it prior to Pesach,
Right.
you can use some of these.
Right. We
Right,
have to
right,
watch
right.
out for kitnios.
Kitnios,
Yes.
right.
The
Watch out
same
for
thing with
kitnios.
quinoa
Quinoa is the same thing.
thing.
Yeah.
And like extra virgin olive oil.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
don't.
I think the OU actually has a list on their website.
They
Yes.
and have a list that they send out.
I think also
Salt.
salt.
I mean, not that we're using it so much, but sugar, white
Right,
sugar.
right. You
Right.
have
You
to.
know, yeah,
Brown sugar does,
brown sugar,
but
right.
white sugar doesn't.
Right.
But yeah, you can have access
You're right.
to those lists.
Oh, and raw nuts,
Raw nuts, yes,
Mhm.
raw nuts, exactly. Almonds, walnuts,
cashews.
cashews.
Right.
These are our staples
Right.
Right.
during the year as well. And also raisins, as long as it has a texture and they don't use an oil.
Right, like the Trader Joe's dark raisins,
Yes,
you can use.
Mhm.
yes, we
Yeah.
checked that also last year. You
Yeah.
can use that. And there's also a lot of other things if you go to Costco, if you're brave enough to, and they still have it in stock. This year's different. It might be different, but typically we'll go and we'll get the frozen Alaskan salmon, which is kosher the Pesach with the OU certification.
Right,
And there's many of the frozen fruits as well. You know, fruits for the snacks for the kids,
right,
as long as it doesn't have a citric acid in it. So like the organic raw fruits and vegetables, fruits those are kosher the Pesach. There's a whole potpourri of foods that you can buy without having to have the certification, which is what we like
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
because you avoid having to go to those stores.
Right. Which we want to also avoid going to a lot of stores now anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does help.
Yeah.
yeah.
And so you can order that online if you order now, and they don't run out of stock. You can order a lot of those on certain websites.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite websites that you want?
Again, without the coronavirus issues going on, typically Thrive Market I like a lot for some of that stuff. You know, I will use even Costco.com sometimes. Those are my favorite ones, really. The challenge being this year that a lot of these places are 2 weeks behind in their deliveries. And
Right.
so we're running out of time. If you want to do those orders, you got to get them in like this week
Yeah.
to get here before
Right.
Pesach,
Right.
which normally is not an issue.
Right.
No, I know.
Right.
I-
Also, I think Whole Foods through Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of stuff. I mean,
Again, not
This-
now.
Not
so
now.
many.
not so much.
So it's a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also, if you don't mind, I want to talk about the cottonseed oil for a
Oh,
second.
please do.
Because this is something that is such an eye roller for certain people, and for everyone else, people aren't even aware of it. One of the things in terms of, you mentioned earlier about substitutions of foods that you're trying to mimic during the year is that instead of potato chips with whatever olive oil, if you're lucky, or canola oil or many other oils, safflower oil, sunflower oil, they will use cottonseed oil for
Right.
everything.
Right.
Every processed food pretty much has cottonseed oil in it. And cottonseed oil, it's never been a good oil to begin with. It comes from the cottonseed, which was never something that was edible in the first place.
Right.
Crisco invented it in 1911. And the first oil to be hydrogenated. So
Yeah.
it was used for that. And it was used for Pesach because it's parve.
Right.
And it replaced lard.
Mm.
And it was cheap.
Right.
Yes.
But it's not healthy for you. And there's plenty of sources online. And I don't know why so many people still use this in the manufactured food industry.
Right. Well, it's probably
Because it's
cheap.
It's
and
cheap.
accessible.
Yeah. Why do they use
Yeah.
high fructose corn syrup
Correct.
during the year?
Right.
don't know.
Right.
Oh no, because it's cheap.
It's
Right.
And you
cheap.
get a lot of bang for your buck.
Yes.
Right.
Because
And
it's really
I just,
sweet.
I just also want to say, like, Pesach, like you said, is 8 days. If
Right.
you're using cottonseed oil or you're using products with
Yeah.
cottonseed oil, 8 days
Is
out
it-
of the year
Right.
is not the end of the world.
isn't.
But,
Right.
Be aware of it in the future, next year. Maybe if you have a choice on the shelf, you don't need to reach for the
Right.
cottonseed oil.
Well, especially too, because I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, like I just don't feel so good during Pesach. I feel, bloated. I feel like achy, stuff like that. And to sort of consider, yes, it's only 8 days, but do you really want 8 days of,
Right. Yeah.
of misery?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and I say that, I say also, perhaps people need to eat more fiber.
Yeah,
Which comes
that's
the
true,
fresh fruits
too.
and vegetables.
Right.
Because a lot of the
Right.
issue is the fiber. They're going to have their kazayas of matzah,
Right.
Right.
depending on how they hold on what a kazayas is.
Right.
I can't do the whole piece of a whole square of matzah kazayas. It just kills my stomach.
Right.
But even a little bit after 2 or 3 days, I need to have more fiber.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's dates that you can. There's a lot of remedies for that.
Right.
Prunes.
Prunes.
Dried plums.
Basically, lots of fruits and
Right.
vegetables.
Lots of fruits and
Lots of
vegetables.
fruits and
Right.
vegetables. Yeah. So it's important to add that
Yeah.
as they can. Okay, and what about people have their kids are home now,
Yes,
but
yes.
how do they, if they're not buying all the packaged goods,
Yes.
so nuts, like give me a toolbox of things that they can stock up on. Nobody's going on Colombo trips either this year.
Right.
That's usually
Right,
a big
exactly.
challenge about
Yeah.
what to bring. But
Okay, so that's less of a challenge.
right.
Yeah.
So, tell me what things you feed your kids, like what.
Yeah. One of the things that we feed our kids a lot of, well, we make our own almond milk, which I'm not advocating everybody to do, but it's very easy to do.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
And
on your website.
It's on our website, yes. So I have a recipe for that, which I think is good for Pesach as well.
Right.
Yes. Do you use it? I mean, I ordered a nut milk bag
Yeah.
for Pesach.
Yes.
Do you have that too?
We have. We do
Okay,
have a nut
yeah.
milk bag for Pesach. Good point.
Yeah.
The
And
Vitamix.
you can order that on Amazon too.
Yes, and that probably is not sold out.
No, I didn't have a problem getting it. Yeah.
We really do feed them. What my wife does also is we will substitute, instead of using matzah meal, for example, for the knedlach, we'll make soup with the almond meal, almond flour.
Almond
actually.
flour, right? Yeah.
And we
Almond
spice
flour
it
matzah.
similarly, and
Right.
it's so good. And we're going to have a recipe for that as well coming up.
Oh,
probably,
good.
hopefully in the ebook.
Yeah.
If I decide to include it in there, but definitely for Pesach, because that's something that we've learned to do year round. The boys love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very light also.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And when for breakfast is always an issue because typically people buy those cereals that are just pure potato starch.
Right.
We just feed our kids. We'll make hard-boiled eggs.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make our own mayonnaise a couple times. Again, it's a bit of a work in the kitchen, but the 10 minutes, 2-3 times a week,
Right.
I think it's easy
Yeah.
enough if you have a hand blender. It's
Right.
something that we use a lot because I don't trust any of the mayonnaises for Pesach.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
There's really so much other junk in
Yeah.
there, and it's only a couple of days of the year.
Right.
So we do a lot. We do a lot of things, a lot of soups using the fresh fruits and using the
Right.
fresh vegetables.
Right.
Butternut squash.
On the episode, our Pesach Perfectly Organized, we
Yeah.
said if you are going to buy a tool, because there are people who are not set up in their kitchen, an
Right.
immersion hand blender
Yes.
is
Go.
really important
Yeah.
because you can blend your soups, you can do your mayonnaise. So that would be a product that we would highly
Right.
recommend investing in just for Pesach.
I
they're
totally
not that
agree.
And they're not expensive.
Yeah.
They're not.
No.
It's really worth it. It's really. It
No.
isn't like buying a Vitamix. It's
Yeah.
a small investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although the Vitamix is worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a workhorse.
Right.
And then it comes down to some of the desserts. So what we do a lot of too is we'll use the cacao powder. We use a lot of coconut products. The ones that, again, some of them don't need hechsher specifically for Pesach. You can get some of them at Trader Joe's. I mean, I would check the OU website, the kashrut.com.
Right.
But these lists are published very quickly by February usually.
Yeah.
And a lot of coconut products. We do a lot of baking with coconut, a lot of baking with almond flour.
Right.
Yeah. That's what, I mean, we do that. Like I said, I do
Right,
that
you do
during
that
the
too.
year
Right.
anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's great. I mean, I haven't done it for Pesach. This will be the first Pesach I'll
Yeah.
be using the almond flour.
Yeah.
So,
And I know a lot of people are ready to, take fresh fruit and make their own sorbets.
Yes.
right. So actually, it's interesting that you pointed that out because in Ami's Pesach issue magazine that's coming out in a few weeks, I have an article in there where they've asked me what I would present at a Pesach lunch. So there are a lot of my recipes are in there. None of them use potato starch.
Nice.
Good.
The sorbet is the only thing that has processed sugar added that we did at the end, but it's a little bit, and it's for dessert, so I think that's perfectly
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But
Right.
so make sure that you guys, if you want to see, some of my recipes, look for Ami's Pesach issue, which should
Okay.
be out in about a week or two, I think. But
Sounds
I'll let you
good.
know on Instagram also.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I just thought of another food for your other question
Mhm.
that we've been playing around with during the year, and it's apropos to the Seder days as well, is if you've ever had mizuna, which is the Japanese dandelion
Yeah.
leaves.
Mhm.
It's very bitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's very bitter. And my wife makes a wonderful pesto out of that.
Mm.
That has the feel of, a moror.
Right,
It really
right.
has that flavor to it.
Oh, interesting.
And so it
Nice.
works very well as part of the meal.
And it's
Right.
very healthy for you.
It's
very good for
extremely
your
healthy.
digestion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And detoxifying.
Very detoxifying. Okay, any last minute tips? We're gonna get your ebook.
Yes.
So
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
okay.
So do you guys eat any like chicken or meat or anything?
Yes.
Oh, you do eat.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I was thinking so if you're not eating that, like what you could
Yeah.
put on your Seder plate instead of the shank bone.
Well, I think you have to do that anyway.
do?
You don't eat it, so it doesn't matter.
I haven't looked too much into that. We don't eat a lot of meat, but my wife is Argentinian, so there's
Oh.
almost a default that we do have to
Yeah,
have
a little
some.
bit. Right.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay, so Michael's ebook that is going to be available this week. What you need to do is to DM me your email address or DM it to Mike at his Instagram is Consciously Kosher. He's also on Facebook at Consciously Kosher, and we will send you a PDF of the ebook right away. It will not be available to the general public until the following week, so you could get a jump on all that.
Right.
So, Michael, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming
trying.
in.
I feel like you're so in line with our brand with your
Right.
meal hacks and innovative food trends. To
Yeah.
help us all eat and keep a kosher and healthier lifestyle. So follow him there. Follow me on Instagram at Jill Sharfman. I want to also thank our engineer, Mike Casantini at the Network Studios. Good luck to everyone.
Yes.
Please be safe out there.
Right.
And have a Chag Kasher V'Sameach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is it for this episode of Let My People Eat. Please visit our website at letmypeopleeat.com and leave us a comment. Get in touch at our email at podcast@letmypeopleeat.com or call us at 317-659-0004. Post on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook with the hashtag #LetMyPeopleEatPodcast. If you like this show, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Tell your friends and family, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts.
And please remember that although we are certified professionals, this is not a medical advice podcast. No content, posts, or comments should be interpreted as professional guidance. Always speak to your own health practitioner about making the right life changes for you.
Until next time, I am Jill Sharfman.
And I'm Andrea Moskowitz.
Thanks for joining us.
And go in good health.